Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market, here with a video as promising, discussing key mechanics from new commanders that may spike cards that previously didn't see as much play in Commander as they would until a card that actually utilizes those mechanics come out. So think like Feather the Redeemed. Feather the Redeemed had a good mechanic that allowed you to get back the spells you cast if they targeted a creature, so it breathed a lot of new life just new life in general into cards that never saw Commander play and actually spiked the price of many of them. So Tiamat actually does have a very interesting ability to search up 5 dragon cards with different names and put them in your hand. And so what I'm thinking where people should be focusing is on any sort of card that helps cheat those creatures into play. Now, of course, all of the dragons that will want to be tutored up or any other ways that enable dragons from your library or reducing cost of dragons or those type of cards, of course, are going to want to go in this deck. But for this video, I want to focus on that key mechanic, which is be able to cheat cards once they're in the hand into play, which I think a lot of the decks are going to start focusing around with Tiamat to give it any sort of difference from all the other dragon-based commanders that have existed. I mean, it almost seems like yearly they print a 5-color dragon commander. There are plenty of them that already exist, and so I think that's going to be the focal point of this one, is the cheating in after you have them into your hand. So let's go ahead and start looking at them. I haven't ranked them in order of where I think they are as far as specs. Now, there are a couple of factors that go into specs. The first is going to be a supply and price point. Those are obviously even more important than really the demand of what the teammate's going to, unless you're really starting to see lists, like every list running this at like 70% or above. You want to look at right now the supply of these cards, the current price point, and see if there's an opportunity for these cards to actually go up in value on the perceived demand that Tiamat's going to give these cards. So let's just scroll down Tiamat and get a look of what people are actually playing right now. So first of all, they're running all the dragons possible. They're running all the fixing possible. Things that deal with dragons like Crux of Fate, Dragon Lord Servant that reduces the cost. The dragons themselves that actually work with other dragons like Lathless, the Dragon Tempest. Those type of cards I expect to see a lot of play in this deck. There's the card this turn of John that then gives him haste. Those are the type of cards I know they're going to go in here. And then all of these cards as well that work with dragons and ramping, Herald's Horn, Dragon's Horde, Urza's Incubators. Those are great specs because people are going to need them for their dragon deck and they're going to throw them in. So again, if you scroll down here, you don't see what I've been looking for here too often until you get down into flex artifacts. And then the flex artifacts do have some of these cards that do cheat in. So things like the Dragon Arch and the Quicksilver Amulet. And we look at those a little more in detail. So I went ahead and looked at all the cards that are viable for putting cards into play. And we're going to talk about them here. So the first up, we're going to call the green creatures. So if we look back here, a lot of these dragons actually are green if we look at the creatures that are being played. So the good thing about dragons, you have a lot that are in the Gruul colors. You have plenty that are actually in Selesnya. You have a lot that are multicolored. So it's not too hard to search up 5 green commanders, or at least one green dragon that wants to be cheated into play. Something like the Tarka World Render, of course, would be a good one to be cheated into play. So something like the Dramatic Entrance, which could reduce the cost from 7 to 5 and also instant speed it into play, might be something that these decks will run. This is one that I'm actually not the most bullish on because I think that there are probably better ways to get that residual effect of cheating cards into play, but it is an option with Dramatic Entrance. The supply of this is very, very low, just being printed in Shadowmoor. This is actually a card that I do like long term because as the more and more Magic ages, the more sets that come out, there are going to be some big dumb green creatures that have huge converted mana costs. They're going to want to be cheated in, and in instant speed, that's pretty good. It's kind of like a pseudo haste effect. In Commander, especially with multiple opponents, oftentimes it's just best to wait till your opponent to your right's last, or when they go in their end phase, and then flash something in. So something like Dramatic Entrance, I kind of like as a spec card regardless of whether or not it goes into this deck. I think it's kind of a sleeper. I'm actually surprised it hasn't gone in a lot of Commander decks. It's actually only showing one Commander deck that it does go into, but in the future with more big dumb green commanders, I expect Dramatic Entrance it might be an education card too. This might lead something like Command Zone showcasing this card in a deck, and then all of a sudden it will go nuts. This is also Lure of Prey. It's exactly what Lure of Prey does. It does it for 1 mana cheaper. If an opponent successfully casts a creature spell this turn, you can put a green creature card from your hand into play. So an instant speed for 1 less, 1 more. Lure of Prey has spiked up in the... Yeah, it's pretty recent when it spiked up because this is an old Mirage. And it also doesn't seem to be... Yeah, no decks found running the Lure of Prey at the moment. But this is just what low supply can really do from a Mirage card with some sort of ability that sometime in the future of Magic, this is going to be a card that's going to want to go into a commander deck. And whether or not it be this particular dragon deck or not, which I'm still saying that dramatic entrance and Lure of Prey might not be the right ones to go in for this particular one. But in the future, big dumb creatures, big dumb green creature decks are going to want both of these cards. So we can say the same thing about Garrett, Color of Beast. It's actually gone down since its height, which is always a good sign for getting into a card, is when it's gone down from its spike. And this also has the ability for 6 mana, so you can actually get this out a turn earlier than your commander to then be able to put a green creature card from your hand on the battlefield. So it has to survive that turn, though, and then you can -3 it and throw in a big dragon into play. And it's got a nice little +1 ability. So this one's a little bit of a food for thought. It sees much, much more play in EDH than its counterparts of Fear the Dramatic Entrance and Lure of Prey. But again, I think these two are more education cards than anything because they're both very, very powerful with their abilities of reducing the mana cost plus playing at instant speed. Garrick's not going to be able to do instant speed, but it is something that you'll get residual value out of. Now we can switch off to one more, which is the Norwood Priestess, which does a very similar one. And so you can tap it to put a green creature card from your hand. This is a very expensive card, so I don't think that this is viable for a spec. This is going to get a reprint. I'm very surprised that this card hasn't got a reprint because Wizards has been reprinting these type of cards that just have the low supply from Portal Second Age. So this is not something I would spec into. It's very, very expensive. I think that alone, and with having so many different options for doing this type of ability, people are going to shy away from throwing in to their Tiamat deck. So Norwood Priestess is not where I'd go, but it is another option. We can also get this ability from other things like the Mindrack Legion. This one does get a little more interesting because of the +1/+1 to red and blue creatures. If you do go get a multicolored creature and put into play, it's going to get that added benefit. And it is for 4 mana, you can continue to put blue and red creature cards into play. It does have a high cost, though, of 6 mana. You have to get it out early, and then you can start getting the value out of it. But it still does synergize with flicker type effects. So say people run like Ghostly Flicker. Oh, no, you have to cast it from your hand for Tiamat to work. So actually it'd be returning it to the command zone or returning it to the hand, then recasting Tiamat. You can continue to get more and more dragon cards. And then a card like the Mindracker Leech would be a way to then reduce the cost of putting them into play. So this one's actually an interesting card. Again, I think it's a lot less versatile than some of the cards we're going to be talking about, but it is another option for Tiamat. This also is a card that hasn't had a printing, really. It hasn't had a mystery printing or just Eventides the last time. This one's interesting too because just like the dramatic entrance or like some of these other cards we've talked about, this does seem to be a sleeper card that eventually is going to see play in various commanders as they are printed. So if we ever get some deck that wants to throw out some big blue or red creature, this card is going to continue to get better and better with the more of those creatures that come out. These lords are also effects that are pretty popular. This is probably what Locust God, I would assume. Yep, there's a Locust God deck that would give those locusts +2/+2. So the Mindracker Leech for that, I think it's just a card that is very similar to Dramatic and Lure, that I think it's just a good buy anyway for the price point because it has very, very low supply, has never seen a reprint. Though you got to keep that in mind that this card is ripe for a reprint. And it just is still struggling from, I don't know if there's a lot of like green, besides Locust God, that actually create blue and red tokens, for example. But if we ever get into that sort of meta or a set that actually does focus on like, is it tokens? This is another card that will go nuts with the commander that actually wants it in that list. Another card that can cheat out red creature cards is Perforos Bronze-Blooded, and it's one of the cheapest it has ever been here. So the showcase ones are the exact same price as the regular, and it is really flatlined out. I guess there's a little bit cheaper point to get in at the height of the Theros drafting, but right now, this is a pretty good card, though. It's going to be a popular commander, I think, for years to come because of its ability to put in red creature cards or artifacts on the battlefield, and then you have to sacrifice them for only 3 mana. That is not a hard thing to accomplish to get out some pretty broken, artifacts or red creatures, and creatures also have haste, so it's got that sneak attack on a stick or the sneak attack on a stick there that does all those abilities very similar. It also is a 7/6. It can Voltron down an opponent in 3 attacks. And so I also think that this isn't a bad card to be picking up regardless if it does start to see play in the Tiamat deck. So this one's also another one to keep in mind for future printings. If there ever is more big red creatures or artifacts that want to be cheated into play, Purphoros is definitely going to be a very popular way to do this. So this one is a sleeper in my opinion. I think that it probably is the time to start getting in on these particular cards from Theros-Bound Death. Theros-Bound Death actually is a very, very tough booster box to find sealed now at distributor price. Next up, we have another very interesting card because this has some wombo combos that can work with the deck. This is Death Render. Death Render is 4 mana, and it gives it +2/+2 when it equips. But when an equipped creature dies, you may put a creature card from your hand onto it attached to the Death Render. So you can do some chains with Death Render, and I actually like this one. Again, it probably needs to be focal, like someone needs to showcase this with Tiamat as a combo with Death Render, and then you can kit all of your ETB effects. So there's got to be a wombo combo for a dragon comes into play, gets its ETB effect, you sacrifice it, another dragon gets to come into play, you get its ETB effect, you sacrifice it, another dragon comes into play, you get its ETB effect. You get it. You get 5 instances of this. Maybe your last one ends up being the dragon you want to actually hit and see play, or maybe it's something that returns all. Is there a dragon when it comes into play that returns all dragons back from the graveyard to the battlefield? I think that's actually the cool little combo if there is one. I'm thinking there was one. Didn't one of the Rakdos dragons do that? When it enters the battlefield, return all dragons of a type? Or am I just making things up here? Kind of comes to mind with that, but yeah, someone correct me if I'm wrong if there is a card like that, but I thought there was a Rakdos or some sort of card that then it was able to return all dragons. I know there's a few spells that can do that, so that could like set you up. So you just kill, and then you can return all dragons back from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then you are golden, you're good to go, and then you're going to win the game the next turn. So the Death Render combo does seem very, very interesting for this type of list because it's not that hard to enable with this wombo combo. Again, an Ashnod's Altar or Phyrexian Altar or any sort of sacrifice outlet. There might even be a dragon that's easy to sacrifice things, and then you can just boom, 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 get a bunch of ETB effects, and then possibly even with the, there you go, right there with the so we know that we have the, was it called Patriarchal's Bidding, that you can choose a creature type and return all creature types from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if you have Ashnod's Altar, that gives you 2, 4, 6, 8 mana right there in generic. Or I guess what you need to do is sacrifice the first 3, 4 generic, and then you need a black and then another black from a Phyrexian Altar, and then you can get them all back. So there's your wombo combos: Death Render, Phyrexian Altar, and then all the dragons that Tiamat go there. Maybe I'll have to tweet that out for a nice little 3-card combo. So I do like this one. It hasn't had a reprint since Conspiracy. It's been pretty flat for a while, for a long time. So again, any sort of card that then starts to work with Death Render is going to be a, man, this card just like really makes me think of wombo combos though, of many different, I mean, it did need something like Tiamat, but man, this seems like anything that returns creatures back from your graveyard to your hand can be a big wombo combo. There's got to be a lot of combos that I've overlooked with Death Render. This seems like a pretty low price point to begin with such a powerful card that interacts with the Phyrexian Altars and the Ashnod's Altars. All right, then we of course have Tooth and Nail. This one serves 2 purposes. For 7 mana, you can do 2 cards from your hand onto the battlefield, but if you entwine it, you can actually search them up. I think this is just going to be a favorite card for these type of decks that can search up 2-card combos. There is many dragon ones that give like haste and double strike to your dragons, and then you can swing in for lethal. I'm not going to talk much about it. It's pretty high at the moment with Mirrodin and Modern Masters being the last time it's printed, and it's seen a lot of play even recently in Commander decks. Excuse me. Then we have Sneak Attack. This one's a bit interesting. It did just get a Double Masters reprint, but it has been flat here at $16 for quite a bit. And as we've seen with other mythics from Double Masters, these have started to go up in value, at least the mythics. And I think Sneak Attack is the best one that we've covered so far with like a residual use of getting value out of Tiamat. So you can get this out early on turn 4. If you like ramped like a Rampant Growth, turn 3, you get it out, you get Tiamat out, and then you can start sneak attacking those dragons into play. And very, very good card to get the value out of it. So not going to talk much about it. This one's so far probably my favorite one because of the Double Master's recent reprinting means it's about ready to go up anyway, and it's probably a great spec target for Tiamat. Next up, we have the Shifty Doppelganger. This one is a very low supply card. It's very similar. I probably should have put this in the category with like the Perforos because it does require you 4 mana to put a creature card from your hand into play. That creature gains haste until turn. At the end of turn, sacrifice a creature. If you do, return Shifty Doppelganger to play. So it's a 4 mana like sneak attack ability, but again, you can get those dragons out for a bit cheaper. It also is a wait, shapeshifters do not count as changelings. I was going to say it counted as a changeling, but that's not correct. Shapeshifter is not changeling, so it does not work to be tutored up as one of your cards for Tiamat. I don't think they've errated it, right? They haven't errated this to a changeling or anything, so yeah, it's still a shapeshifter, which does not count as that. Wish they would errat this to a changeling. That'd be kind of cool. Alrighty, so the next one I want to talk about is a Court of Bounty. This is out of Commander Legends. There's still quite a healthy supply of Commander Legends out there, so this one will continue to go down in value unless like a commander like this can spike it up. This one is a little bit of liability. You get the Monarch, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you're not the Monarch, you can put a land into play. But if you are the Monarch, you can put a creature card into play. So that's another way to get a card cheated out from your hand. It's an interesting one. I probably prefer like Sneak Attack over this one. But this is another card that just gets better and better with the more cards that do want to be cheated into play. Next up is Champion of Ronis. I actually do like this one as a spec because of just the curve of this deck really makes sense. So you can exert it, and when you do, you can put a creature card from your hand on a battlefield. So it's after attacks have occurred, but this is a way to get a residual. Usually in Commander, these type of abilities are a little bit better because there's always like an opponent that's open. So being able to exert this, and then if you have any way to untap it the next time, then you can exert it again and get some more dragons into play. I think it's a cute budget card for it, and that for that reason, I think there will be many decks that are going to run this. I wouldn't fully commit to this spec. Like again, I still think like Sneak Attack is going to be the card that really just hits home. And there are a few other that we're coming up to that I think is going to be, clearly better than Champion of Ronis, but this one you should definitely put on your radar. It's not a bad card to like pick up a playset of this. It hasn't seen any sort of reprints. So, I mean, it's been flat for a while. It hasn't gone down. So I wouldn't consider this a bulk rare. It doesn't hit that bulk rare price. Card Kingdom has it slightly above bulk rare price, so it means they actually do sell them. But this is something you want to pay close attention to, like Star City Games, Cool Stuff Inc., Troll and Toad. I don't think Channel Fireball. Do they do? Yeah, they do. Do they show their inventory? I don't know. But one thing with like Card Kingdom, it's very easy to see if they've been dwindling on their supply by going over into their buy list. So I'll show you how to do it real quick. So their buy list will so not even buying this, it looks like, for the Champion Rose. But let's go over here to my pick, the Shimmer Dragon. Which actually, Shimmer Dragon could actually go in this deck, but probably not. It's not a dragon they want to be running. So Shimmer Dragon, you can actually see how much they are buying it by going to the sell, and you take a look at this number, and if this number goes up, so it's at 122, so they've got a big inventory since the last time I checked. I think they capped this one at 140, so they've received in some more they've bought. But if you ever see this number go from like 60 on their buy list to like 120, it means they're really starting to get low compared to how much they've been selling them, because a lot of times what they do is they have this kind of timer on when they put eight in the card. They don't want a buyout to happen to where one person just buys them out before they can manually look at a card to see if they need to adjust the price. So a lot of it's automated. They'll sell 8 copies and they'll increase it by 20%. Then they'll sell 8 copies and increase it by 20%. And then that also does have a little bit of waiting period before they can, manually look at things as well. Something triggers it. But you can always look to see how much of those have sold based upon how much more aggressive their buy list becomes. So that's a good little trick to keep in handy for Card Kingdom. So I would assume doing that with Champion of Ronis. The Champion of Ronis does come on their buy list because right now they aren't buying it. That's a good indicator as well as that is being sold. So I mean, plenty here with the EX and near mint versions of this, but in the future we'll have to wait and see if Tiamat is something. So it's not something I would not pull the trigger on until I actually would start to see movement, is what I'm trying to say. Now we really get into the stuff that I think are really good specs here, because they're very, very versatile with Tiamat, and they usually have a renewable resource of being able to put things into play from hand. So the first one is the Cryptic Gateway. This one actually seems really good. It has spiked up recently, but it could get another spike. It hasn't ever seen a reprint. The foil multiplier is massive. You can tap 2 untapped creatures you control. You may put a creature card from your hand into play that shares a creature type with each creature tapped this way. So there's already some wombo combos here with like Lathless, because Lathless puts a creature into play every time a dragon comes into play, right? So whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 5/5 red dragon creature token. So then that hits, and you can tap Lathless, or you can tap the creature token and the creature token that came into play, and then your Cryptic Gateway then gets them into play. So this one I think is absolutely poised for a spike. I think it's one of the better ones at the price point. It's very, very rare in the scope of things for other cards we've talked about, and it does have that wombo combo that people are going to start talking about. There's going to be YouTubers talking about it. Yeah, it's. I think the Tiamat's going to be a very, very popular commander. It hits all of the. It's a god. It's a dragon. I mean, man, right there, you can put it in your god deck. But it's a dragon god. Womp womp. And so people are going to want to build it, and Cryptic Gateway is going to be one of those cutesy wombo combos. So you always have to think of Commander EDH as that. People are more interested in doing cutesy combos than they are winning. Now, competitive EDH, although a thing, is a joke compared to EDH as far as supply and demand is concerned. EDH, casual EDH, is going to strip the supply of demand, or demand is going to strip the supply at a much, much, much higher rate than CEDH. Yes, the CEDH has a little bit more staying power, meaning that those commanders are probably in a long term. People are going to build them, and they're going to have that particular commander or those particular competitive cards are going to be continuously bought. You don't have to wait for like a cutesy combo. But for right now, Cryptic Gateway is very, very good for what it does with these wombo combos in the Tiamat. Alright, another one that's really interesting is Hunting Grounds. So Hunting Grounds, you do have to have Threshold, but obviously you're going to be running every fetch land in the entire universe in Tiamat, so it's going to get 7 cards quite easily. There are also going to be other, ways that you're going to be cultivating, and Hunting Grounds is going to be out there, and then whenever an opponent plays a spell, you can put a creature card from your hand into play. Never been reprinted. Insanely high right now. I'm expecting this one to get a double up. I think it's going to go in the vast majority of Tiamat decks. Next up is Elvis Piper. This is kind of the duh card. 1 mana, tap, put a creature card into play. It hasn't seen a reprint since Masters 25. This does say the cheapest version. Okay, let's look at the cheapest version. It's $7.20 for Masters 25. Yeah, it's already been going up in value to begin with. It's been stretched by, some of these more recent commanders. But, I mean, this is just like a classic in EDH to begin with, and I do believe that the demand from Tiamat's going to outstretch the supply for this particular card, and so it's going to start going up in value. Next up, we have Bellaby's Portal. This is one that's been reprinted recently in the Mystery Booster. There will be more Mystery Boosters coming out that will contain them, because I believe they're the same Mystery Boosters in the event ones had the same cards in them. Correct me if I'm wrong. Just the slots were a little bit different for one of those cards that was not a joke card, but a test card. But the Bellaby's Portal is also kind of interesting because for 3 and tap, you can put a creature card with the chosen type from your hand onto the battlefield. And so it does a little bit better job than the Quicksilver Amulet. 5 mana to cast, 3 mana to tap, but you're going to be choosing dragons. Quicksilver Amulet might be able to have some more versatility by throwing in the non-dragons, like throwing your Elvish Piper into play. But, I mean, this one's just going to do it for 1 cheaper. And definitely last but not least is going to be the Dragon Arch. This puts a multicolored creature card from your hand into play. Can't get your red dragons, but the vast majority of dragons are going to be multicolored that you're going to be using in this deck. So the Dragon Arch is going to be definitely a shoe-in. It's an uncommon from Apocalypse, which might as well put it as a mythic at this point. And I do believe that this one is going to start being bought up very, very quickly. So these are the ones that I think that if I were to say, I don't know if I'll do a top 10, but the ones that I'm definitely more bullish on that are going to get a price increase right out the gates. Sneak Attack, I think it's poised right now from Double Masters to already start going up. We have the next one being the Cryptic Gateway. This one is probably my favorite pick if I were going to rank them. Hunting Grounds, Elvish Piper, Bellaby's Portal, Quicksilver Amulet, and the Dragon Arch. So again, all these focus on cheating things into play. I might have missed a few. There might be a few cards that are legal in EDH that people are going to run, but these ones having that continual use of them, I think are going to be very, very sought after to be put in this deck. So the big wildcard here is this Death Render. I still think that Death Render combo, so what is it? Patriarchal's Bidding, and I think there's one other one that works. So Patriarchal's Bidding, you need a sack outlet, probably something like Ashnod's Altar or Phyrexian Altar, and then Death Render, and that's a pretty neat little combo. So, yeah, that's all I have for you for this one. We'll take a look at some of the other ones. The problem is, like, no one's put any lists. I don't even know what the secondary commander is going to be. We still have a few spoilers left to go with this, but we'll keep our eye out when lists start coming up and then look at any sort of key mechanics that go with these particular cards. So I'd like to hear your comments in the comment section below of what cards that I might have missed that have any sort of cheat into play effects, or if you have a Tiamat spec that you think is going to be a great spec, feel free to blast in the comment section below. We're all in this together, all of us filthy, dirty speculators. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.